All right, everybody, good morning. I hope you guys are doing great this Thursday morning. Welcome to another session of Academy for Program Coordinators, and I hope you guys are enjoying all of these sessions. I want to say thank you to everybody who has been participating. We hope to keep this ball rolling, as you know, and it's the slide deck is rolling. We have our first conference coming up in May 15 and 16 here in Fort Worth, Texas. So if you have any questions, want more information, feel free to reach out to us. In the meantime, let me roll this small video and we'll get started. If I can get to it, sorry. Block your calendars for May 15, 16, 2025, as you're cordially invited to come to Cowtown to join the nation's leading community of program coordinators for an unforgettable experience that will inspire, connect, and empower you. We will be learning from dynamic speakers, thought leaders, and coordinators just like you who overcome challenges and are setting the standard and raising the bar in medical education. Network with our vibrant community of program coordinators from across the United States. We share your passion for excelling in medical education as we forge meaningful connections, collaborate on solutions, and add to our lasting support network. Whether you're new to program coordination or a seasoned professional, our tailored sessions ensure there's something for everyone. We understand the challenges program coordinators face every day. This conference is designed for you by coordinators just like you to inspire and support the critical role you play in shaping the future of healthcare. Don't miss the opportunity to invest in your program, the future of medical education, and most importantly, yourself. Reserve your spot today and get ready to walk away with new energy, innovative ideas, and the confidence to tackle any challenge. See you in Cowtown in May. All right, everybody. Well, I hope that gives you an energy to join us in May. For those of you who are going to ACGME next week, I hope I can see you there and hope to meet all of you, or at least some of you, because I know there's a lot of people going into ACGME next week. All right, to the good stuff. To the good stuff. So we have Eva. Please tell me how you say your last name, please. I don't want to screw it up.
That's okay. Munier, like junior with an M.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
simple.
Emma Junior, she's going to talk to us today about scholarly activity and quality improvement for program coordinators. This is one of the sessions that has been heavily requested in the past in our needs assessment. So we were so lucky to have her here with us today. Eva, the floor is
Yeah.
yours. Feel free. Your screen.
Yeah, thank you. Make sure everybody can you all see my screen okay?
Yes, so far the PowerPoint application.
Do you see all one slide?
Now I see the present.
Okay. Okay, great. So I'm Eva Munier. I'm from the University of Cincinnati. I'm the Education Program Manager in the Division of Cardiovascular Health and Disease. Currently manage 4 cardiology programs. Technically, we have 5, but there are 4 active. So the largest being our cardiology program, which we have 20 trainees that primarily are clinical cardiology, but we also do have physician scientist track trainees also within our system. I also serve as the chair of the Fellowship Administrators in Cardiovascular Education and Training. So if there's any cardiology folks on from Facet, thank you for joining in too. But it's great to see such a large group. Wow, 170 online. This is phenomenal. So thank you for inviting me. So don't have any disclosures. I'm like most everybody else. I'm just simple-minded, administrative type person who loves their job. So that's I guess, my disclosure there. So a little just quick behind the scenes with me. I've been in academic medicine for over 25 years. When I originally started in academic medicine, I was a project manager with a international pediatric hematologist oncologist, and I primarily worked on his publications and his grants. So have a lot of experience with that. I then moved into doing more with fellowship on top of my job. So did 7 years of PTMOC. I've been in cardiology at UC for 17 years. So love the group here. I've been fortunate over the last I think it's been 8 years. I've done 20 presentations at different conferences. And I've had a couple of scholarly activity items presented at both ACC, the American College of Cardiology, and then at AMI. And you'll actually see some of that work here today. And then recently, working on some manuscripts. I'll share a little bit about that later on in the presentation. But so I have a little bit of experience tackling a few different areas. So hopefully the information I shared today will be helpful for you. The objectives for today are just to explain and understand QI, more for the administrative program coordinator role within it. Identify QI, what simple things that are possible within your program that you could take ownership of and make it your own. Explore the actual medical education scholarly activities. How does it all align? What is it all about? It's not just a publication, and we'll kind of dive into that a little bit. And how to develop your own scholarly activity with medical education conferences, publications, kind of, again, just we'll start brainstorming. So first of all, scholarly activity, how it's identified by ACGME. I know most people, especially more of the physicians who've been in the systems much longer, they primarily think scholarly activity is publications, which we've been fortunate that ACGME has expanded on that in the last 20 years for it to mean pretty much a lot of different categories, because we are finding sometimes it is a little harder to get publications or even get our current trainees on that focus. So there's a lot of Q&I regarding scholarly activity, peer-reviewed grants for attendings and faculty members. Review articles, chapters, medical textbooks, creation of your own curricula, your evaluation tools, or didactic educational activities. All of that is considered scholarly activity. Being part of a professional committee. So if you're part of, your national specialty group, that's counted towards scholarly activity. And even your innovations in education. If maybe you set up a simulation program at your institution for your trainees, or you did a collaboration between multiple programs doing innovation and like simulation, that would count also as scholarly activity. And I think most of us are familiar with it, because how many of us are the ones that actually do web ads for our program directors? So, of course, we're all familiar with that as we try to dig into it during the summer. Okay, where does everyone stand as far as quality scholarly activity within our fellowship and residency programs? Excuse me, I have like a little scratchy throat, so I'll be taking sips of water off and But so going back in the day, who would have thought that quality improvement would correlate with Florence Nightingale? But it did, and that was possibly, some of the first quality improvement activities was through her work that she did, and with the soldiers and the death rates and all that. She kind of was the trendsetter for the original QI. ACGME identifies that program directors and coordinators have the primary tremendous responsibility for developing and overseeing improving residency and fellowship programs. That's how we could tie in a lot of our QI that way, is what do we see that's not working that we need to make improvements on? Anything from their rotation evaluations, their 360 evals, maybe it's how your curriculum is set up, maybe it's redoing your supervision policies. That's a hot topic. So any of those could also correlate within QI. Implementing changes based off of accreditation. I know for internal medicine specialties, we just got our continued accreditation letters this week. So you're looking at that. If there was a citation in AFI, or if it's like borderline, you didn't get one this year, but you keep seeing little trends from your resident survey, maybe that's other opportunities for you to expand on QI. Preparing for a site visit. that would be me, got chosen for a random one, and we haven't had a site visit in 16 years. So that's kind of my little thing right now, is I'm like refocusing, looking what are the hot topics, going back to looking at my self-study that I did right before COVID that no longer exists now. So it's kind of, I'm refocusing everything. What do we need to be, what do we need to be tackling for our trainees? What are our goals for the next 5 years? So that's something also you may be, considering for QI projects. When it comes to QI, the first people who tend to see the problems are the program administrators and the trainees. I can tell you, we meet with our fellows in our larger program once a month. And that's one of our hot topics of what is there a problem? Did somebody identify something that needs to be improved? And that's how we kind of start the process moving of, okay, is it an issue with a misunderstanding on the rotation? Is it that they're not receiving all the information and resources they need? Is it something's just not working and we need to figure out why? And it could take a deep dive into it. So that's, again, some simple ways that between us and our trainees that we can quickly identify some QI type activities. As far as the program administrator, we're the ones that see everything. We're the information gatherers. We're the fixers. Let's be honest. We're the Olivia Popes of 5 years ago. We're the ones who sit there. There's a problem. What do we need to do? How do we need to resolve the issue? And what steps did it take? And what things is it that we can even note for ourselves? Like, hey, I was involved in this. This was, it might be something that was a simple fix within a month or two, or it could be a long process of a few years. So again, we play such a crucial role in this, and we have resources at our fingertips. It's surprising that the program directors, they're looking for information all the time of, feed me the information, but they don't realize how much is just right out there. They have access to, a lot of this data too, but to our advantage, that's something that we can be like, hey, yeah, let me look into that. Let me go dive deep in ARIS reports or in the ACGME requirements or whatever it may be. We know where those things are, and definitely use this to your advantage. When this was back in 2020, I believe, this publication. So they looked at what do program coordinators identify as professional development. And of course, the top one, we all want to go to conferences. If it's something like this, or if it's, which honestly, we didn't have very many of these before COVID. Everybody was trying to go to ACGME or to your specialty conferences. Now we have all these great resources online, recordings, live sessions like this. But again, also attending conferences is very beneficial because you're getting to meet people, network, and expand out. Okay, we may have like 150 on this right now, but how many? I mean, you're lucky if you maybe see one or two people maybe that you've seen recurring on these. Who knows? But that's, that's how we identify what's professional development going to these types of conferences. Right below that, a little further down, presenting at a workshop or lecture, that's professional development. That's scholarly activity too for you. So if you see a program like this, that's like, hey, we have these topics we want to address. Maybe that's a way that you can get involved and do something that, take baby steps, do a simple online session, or further down, submitting an abstract or publication, which I'll talk about a project that I did with that. But, that's another great opportunity through GME or the journal GME, before ACGME conference, the AMI conference. That's another great one that's really picked up in the last couple of years. Or again, your specialty areas, your internal medicine, talk to the Aptim program administrator group. They're always looking for people to present on. So, or even just at your own program, your own institution, if you have a monthly GME conference, maybe that's a way to kind of get your foot in the door as far as trying to get a little used to what it takes to put together something for yourself or QI or even quality improve or QI or scholarly activity. So the two examples I'm going to talk about today are using a review process with QNI with my program, and then also how to go about diving deep within to put together a manuscript. So with quality improvement strategies, we all know there's like so many different ones out there, but the overall gist of it is, number one, what are your opportunities? What's out there for you that maybe you can, go after? You're defining the problem. What is the concern? What's the issue? What's the focus of the problem? can these be simple issues? I know QR codes a couple years ago, that was a hot topic. Everybody was wanting to do different things with QR codes to increase conference attendance, to increase evaluations, especially with patients and nursing staff. All those, again, are simple QI things. The key thing is don't underestimate yourself. You bring your ideas to the table. You're part of the leadership team. As far as, ACGME, read your program requirements. Program administrator is part of the leadership team. So your input is very important for the program. And if you're asked for your opinion, lean in, speak up. Don't be shy. Don't like or walk out of the room. Oh, I should have said something. Don't be, you're an important role with this. So make sure that you share your ideas. Don't be afraid. I mean, I'll tell you the story here in a little bit regarding a manuscript idea. And I was kind of hesitant. It took me about a good day or two. And then finally I was like, okay, I'm going to bring it up. So we all have it, even those of us who, been around for a while. We still second guess ourselves, but we need to speak up. So the QI project that we worked on for my fellowship program was a lengthy one, going back shortly after I first started in cardiology. I had a foreign medical school graduate asked, how do we go about reviewing candidates for interviews? So how do we determine which ARIS applicant candidates get to even come for an interview? Well, at that time, it was the associate program director and I would review. We had about 400 to 500 applications and we only had 12 fellows in our primary program at that time. So back then, about half of the applicants were immediately thrown out because of either USMLE scores were not that great or H-1B visas. Most of the time it was the H-1B visa. But again, back in 2009, people weren't using websites as much. It was a whole different system than what we currently have. So as we developed to 18 complement, it became more important. How are we going about in doing recruitment? And we involved more faculty members and we developed actually a great recruitment committee that was focused on how to, both evaluate the applicants, but also interview. So in 2013, I was blessed to have this rising program director who had just graduated from cardiology fellowship. He was eager, he was ready to go. And he's like, how do we review all these applications we've received? So I was like, oh, that was a question a few years before that, and kind of updated him a little bit of how we were doing things. So him and I sat down and talked. And again, he was the assistant associate program director and a very strong interest in becoming a PD. So we kind of worked with the faculty who had always been available to be part of our recruitment committee. And we expanded a little bit on it, making sure that in cardiology, we were hitting all the different areas of the specialty and wanted to have representation from that, but also faculty who had the time and were wanting to provide the commitment to be involved in this group. The program continued to grow, and as we progressed to the 18, we were seeing increase in services at both of our training sites. So at this point, we were our primary site of UC, and then we also have a site at the VA, which is across the street from us. We were dealing with reaccreditation of heart transplant programs. That's honestly about this time was about when those became accredited fellowships. There was more and more interest in cardiology, and we started seeing more and more applications received. So we decided to do a 3-step approach. Now, this was before Thalamus. So I can tell you, we went into full Thalamus last year, so it's helped a lot of this, but this was back in the day before we even had Thalamus. So the first phase was looking at their ARIS-based ranking focused on academic metrics, scholarly activity, and training. So looking at that, we would honestly, it was exporting a spreadsheet out of ARIS and putting the data all in the right categories and looking at the actual trainees that way. What was their total number of publications? What was the total number of abstracts? Were they an AOA? Were they a chief resident? Where did they do their training? Where did they do their medical school? So based off that, I would narrow down the applications, which at this point, we were probably at 700, 800 applications at this point that we received. So I got it down to 250 just based off these 3 focus areas. Selection committee of about 10 were then assigned applications to review. Each applicant, though, was reviewed by 2 committee members. So that way it wasn't just one person singling them saying sorry, but it was, the input from 2. And then the applicants that were actually reviewed by the committee, there was a pre-rank of them. And with that, we looked at medical school, residency program, USMLEs, again, AOA chief residents, scholarly activity. They went above and beyond. Did they get a master's or, a PhD in the time? And then also any other additional training. And if they had been out for a few years, were they able to achieve in getting board certification in internal medicine, which is the step before cardiology? So those were the things we were looking at. Then the applicants are then ranked by the selection committee to decide who was actually invited to interview. If we received an application from somebody who did not get passed on for an interview, but they reached out to us, I kept a spreadsheet of all the emails and phone calls we received. So our program directors would go back in and look at that for reconsideration. But so we did give that extra little step if needed for someone who had really shown strong interest in us. So that was one thing we did do at the time. Then we scheduled the interviews. So we went from 800 applicants to 250 to the review committee, and then we invite 880 to our program to interview. So during the interview, they were evaluated based off of academic record score, which was the record and the letters of recommendation, their research experience. And then the biggest thing we wanted to focus on was their personality. Because by the time you get to our program in cardiology, you've proven yourself. You've passed boards, hopefully. You've had some publications. You've had some scholarly activity. You've had some work experience. But what is your personality like? Are we going to be able to train you? Are you going to be, is the applicant, are they going to be willing to be trained by different faculty members? Cardiology covers so many different areas. So we were looking at all of that. So how did they fit in? So it was the personal interview, the personality that we saw during the interview, their personal statement. What did they write about? Those are always interesting. Their activities, what were they involved in? Their letters of recommendation, and then their language and articulation. So with that one, would we be able to key thing, and I think some of you maybe get where I'm going on this. Will they be able to be understood over the phone at 2 a.m. when they're calling their attendee? Do they have clear articulation? Are they able, or is it somebody we may have to work with a little bit? So those are the things that we were focused on as far as personality. Then we went to their overall rank. So again, personality versus academic score. We did not consider anything with DEI, general race, sexuality, none of that stuff was included. Actually, we even blinded somewhat so that way, you had to interview the candidate to understand any personal things about them. And our thought was if you interview a diverse group, you will match a diverse group. So, which we've been very fortunate to hit that with no issues whatsoever. And then our rank was based off the quality of the applicant, which now we hear more of, especially through ACGME, the overall holistic approach of looking at the candidates. So we were doing this a few years before it became a hot topic. So that was our QI project that I worked on. So we had the idea, developed the project and the goal, and then how do we take it to the next phase of scholarly activity? In scholarly activity, I include poster, abstract, oral presentation, or publication. Those were kind of the 3 things I focused on with this project. So I went for a poster. So I submitted this lovely blue one here to the American College of Cardiology Conference in 2019. I had never written an abstract before in my life. I had went out and looked at, I'll be honest, I did go out and look at some other conferences to see what abstracts were out there and how it was put together. So kind of, tried to look at that. And of course, I had guidance from my program director and associate program directors. But again, I just was, when you have an idea, you want to like really sell it the first time. And that's how I was. I was like, I wanted to have everything presented right. I wanted to, make sure it all looked well. So that's how I put it together. So what was interesting was, and I know this is a little hard to read. So we looked at 4 academic years of recruitment. So what we wanted to see was the green upper right. That's our goal. Those are the applicants with the amazing personality, good academic scores. They would be a phenomenal candidate or fellow. So we looked at 2016, 2017. We're getting a little bit closer to that green spotted area. 2018, we're even closer. And then 2019, almost all, but we had one outlier. The outlier, they were a quiet personality. So during the interview, they were more reserved. So when we identified that, we're like, okay, that's something we need to focus on when we're doing the interviews. We need to be understanding and scoring that, you know what, you're not always going to have this wonderful outgoing, some people are more reserved. I mean, and you see that, I think, more so in foreign medical school grads. I think that some of them can be more reserved, and others, it depends on their day too. Hey, maybe it was an off day. But that's one thing that we were, we kind of looked at how we do things, and we were like, we need to focus on that too, on that quieter applicant. So the other thing we noticed too are all the dots. So these, again, we're trying to even get all the dots up to the upper right corner, and all the dots are all the applicants. The circled are the applicants that are who we matched. So again, we saw that progression over to this green quadrant up here on the top right. So we were not only getting great candidates up there, we're matching pretty close within it too. So had the great opportunity to present a poster then at the ACC conference in 2019. I was nervous, like any of us would be. First time, my program director was there with me, proud as can be, taking pictures like all of our trainees do and post all over social media, which I was just like, no, we don't do that. But he was there, supportive. People were coming by asking questions. It was very interesting. I learned a lot. But then I also found out after doing this, our applications went up. Candidates love the idea that we're sharing what it is that we're looking for in a candidate. And so we saw an increase in our applications by 300 that next season. So I was like, oh, great. So came off of that, we're on a high. Great. Let's get it we're ready to do a manuscript. Maybe that's the next step. We need to publish this. But then COVID hit. And we all know what that meant. Everything froze. Extra projects all froze. I got moved into, let's get ready for whatever virtual recruitment is, had to get our websites ready. Everything changed. And so this project, unfortunately, had to go to the side at the time. So kept looking at recruitment, because now we're not doing in person, we're doing virtual. How's that going to affect us? So would our system work in virtual? So again, we had received more applications, but then we received even more because with COVID, people were worried about what is it really going to be like virtually. I think every program across the country saw more and more applicants. For us in the Midwest, we would only get a handful of West Coasters. Not when it hit virtual. We received even an increase in those. So it was a totally different system than what we had experienced before. So we decided we're not going to change anything. We're keeping our system in place. We're going to do everything the same. Only difference, they don't meet us in person. We're doing it virtually. So our questions, like all of you, was, how will this work? How does a virtual form work? I had no clue what a Zoom was. I didn't even understand what WebEx was. I was just like, I was an in-person type person. The only thing I had at the time, we did use GoToMeeting for our fellows conferences. Otherwise, though, that was it. That was my virtual world. So the big question was, will we be able to evaluate the candidates based off of our personality focus for interviews? Well, we did very well again. 2021, that was the match, because we interviewed fall of 2020 for the 2021 match. Did phenomenal, great. But then we were like, well, maybe we are moving back to on-site. Let's not do anything. Let's keep looking at this. So again, everybody thought, oh yeah, we're going to move back to on-site in 2022, and that didn't happen. We kept with the virtual, and we're now here pretty much virtual for the rest. I can tell you at our institution and our programs are pretty much, it's been decided, I think, that we're staying virtual. So what did I do then? I pulled the data again, looked at things, looked at our recruitment. So here on this one, you see the first 4. That's what I did on the first poster abstract. Then over here, I focused on the next 4 for virtual. So, and you do see, we did take a dip in 2021. We didn't realize it. We still thought we did phenomenal on the match. We didn't even know we took a dip until we looked at this data. We're like, oh, that's interesting. So, but then our data showed we immediately popped back up. Okay, interesting. I think people were getting settled. This was, nobody knew what they were doing. The candidates were nervous. We were nervous. We saw the peak go back up, and we've leveled out. So, you know, we're doing fine. The other thing we noticed too was when it came to the applicants and the matching in 2020, oh, hold on. So 2024, these applicants interviewed as residents for virtual. So they really were the first ones that went the whole virtual route compared to the ones over here who, you know, of course, this was all in-person interviews, and then this was the transition to virtual. So that first group of totally did residency interviews virtually, and us. So again, the comfort zone. So I put this poster together, submitted it to AMI last year, and had the great opportunity of having this poster on display at the AMI conference. So again, took the idea, took it to the next level, and we were moving on quite well. So again, I'll be honest, we're talking about we're working on that as a publication. Looking for taking a little deeper dive, what are the characteristics of published oral abstracts to publication? This tells you here, medical education averages about 70%, 100% being full-length articles, 75% being peer reviewed. So they're actually submitting the medical education articles for the medical journals that our trainees, our physicians are using. I think some of the hotter ones we'll go over here in a bit, but we all know Journal of Graduate Medical Education, and there's a few others that are hot ones for medical education. So how do you take it from a manuscript to a publication? So again, don't be afraid to speak up to your ideas. PDs have, trainees coming to them all the time with ideas, but you also need to share your ideas. You're equally as important. Start documenting your ideas, because you may think of them, but then you forget. So just start a notebook, start writing things down, start a spreadsheet, just start documenting the ideas you have for your program. The other one, do you have time to work on this in your schedule? I can tell you, I'm a little older. I'm an empty nester. I have time. I have time on the weekends. So in the evening. So I didn't see it as a problem, but I can't imagine trying to do this when I was having 2 kids at home and playing taxi after school. So that's the thing. You have to figure out, is this the right time for you? Do you have the time? Can you find the time even during your workday? And remember, if you're hourly, not like you're going to get paid overtime to work on this project. Okay, if you achieve it, great, but most likely you're probably not going to get the overtime to work on this project. So that's something else you have to take into consideration. And don't rush an idea. Maybe, sit on it a little bit. Don't sit there, okay, today I've decided I'm going to do this, and let it evolve a little bit. Take some time, talk to some key players, and just, do some research about the topic. And brainstorm your ideas with other coordinators, the fellows, the residents, your PD, faculty. I mean, just go out and use your resources there. Consider resources for data. So, when it came, this project I'm going to tell you about here in a minute, there was so much data out there that people didn't even realize where it was at. And that was one thing when I worked on this, it was the faculty I was working on it with had no clue the data was out there. So that's something to take into consideration too. So look at your audience. Who, for a manuscript, is it program leadership? Is it the trainees? Is it for your specialty area? Is it how broad is the topic? So is it something for Journal of Graduate Medical Education, or is it more for pediatrics or internal medicine? Those are, those are things you're going to need to look at. When you're looking at a manuscript in a publication, make sure you look at your instruction for authors. So real quick here, hopefully it clicks over to so here I have Journal Graduate Medical Education. It very detailed. They've done an amazing job of identifying, what are the requirements for a manuscript, how to go about, what's an original, what's an innovation. They give you examples of all that.
Sorry to interrupt, but when you click the link, it just stayed on the presentation. It didn't switch.
Okay. Hold on one second here. Sorry. Thank you for telling me. Let's see. Do you see it now? Yeah. Okay, great. Okay, I'll go back up here. So Journal of Graduate Medical Education. So this down here, they break everything down for you. There's a manuscript checklist, but they also give you some great, insight, the overview, authors, how do you go about, what's their author limit? This here is great. The types of manuscripts, what do they call original compared to a brief report? I mean, they even have like letters to the editor, new ideas, all of this is there. Publication or word counts, what is their limits? And the thing is to remember, like with abstracts, if they say 250, usually what you're doing is you're copying and pasting the abstract into the actual website, and it will kick back if your character limit is over. So, make sure you try to stay under those word limits when it comes to that. And it breaks it down based off of what type of activity you're looking at submitting. And then it gives you the components of the manuscript submission, a cover letter, a title page, the abstract, and then even further details regarding abstract. I mean, JGME did a phenomenal job of putting all this together for you. So that way you're not trying to guess it and try to figure this out. So that's for Journal Graduate Medical Education. First-time authors, and consider looking at the reviewer's perspective, which the Academy of Medicine, let me make sure that this one opens and I'll share it with you guys. So here they even went in, can you guys see that okay? Yeah, okay. They actually are giving you examples of what reviewer comments are and the instructions and how they go about evaluating a manuscript. So this is a great one to get that perspective of the actual reviewer. Because I think most of you are like me, we don't review articles. So it's great to get that insight. So then over here on the right, I went out and tried to find, what are the reasons why manuscripts don't get published? What tends to be the primary issues? And, right here, I provided over on the left, not choosing the right submission instructions for, not following the submission instructions for formatting, not choosing the right journal, failure to respond to reviewers' comments. So one thing people don't realize, it's great when you submit a manuscript and you get reviewers' comments. That usually means they are a little piqued in interest in looking at, hey, are they able, this is a good topic. How are they going to be able to tweak it to what we're looking for publishing? So make sure to always address all those questions and resubmit. Don't think that if you get, you receive well, we want a little bit more information. That's not a guarantee, but it's also not a no. So make sure to always address all those reviewer comments from the manuscript submission. Here is also from this was a great article. If you guys want to, moving from an abstract to a manuscript, it had a lot of great resources on it. So this here identifies the differences between an abstract and a manuscript, and it gives you, big one, how many sentences, discussion and limitations you don't have in an abstract, but you do have in a manuscript. So this gave a lot of great resources there. And then tips to maximize chances of an acceptance. Follow those steps that JGME had. Write the cover letter, follow the instructions for authors, reach out to the editor. I did that on the one I'm going to tell you about here in a minute. I mean, I was like, hey, is this even close to what you guys were looking at? And it had kind of an inside scoop. It was another cardiologist. So that helped out a little bit there. But don't be afraid to ask those questions, because why waste your time on a certain journal if it's not going to fit with what they're looking at? Make sure the tables and figures are clear. Again, ask your residents, your fellows, your faculty to give you input regarding the manuscript preparing. And then this one here, attempt to resubmit the revisions as soon as possible. Don't sit on it. For mine, they said, they wanted something in about 6 weeks. We responded and had it resubmitted in 3 days. So, we definitely didn't sit on it when it came to ours. So here's an example of, this was my idea that I came up with. We had one of our fellowship programs nationally that just moved to a match. And there was a lot of questions nationally about how well it worked and did it work, because this group they recruited individually based off their own programs, not through an identified way like the NRMP. So I put together a spreadsheet to brainstorm my ideas. And I over here on the left, discussion points, area of focus, where would I find the data, and then just random other things I wanted to consider. So on this one, I looked at recruitment, in the specialty, programs process for first year in the match. How well did the programs do? Well, we had that data available because we all get the NRMP reports the day of the match. So I went in and looked at that. Application history and specialty. At that point, we were using ARIS before it was moved to the match. So I was able to go into all the ARIS reports for the past, I think they had them back to 2015. So I was able to pull that data very easily. The 2025 match data. How did the first year compared to other specialties when it was their first year? So I went in and looked at that a little bit. I was familiar with EP and heart failure. They had recently, in the last 5 to 7 years, went to the match. So I went and looked at their data to see what it showed. Candidate input about the match. That was one thing we wanted to do, but we did not include it for this manuscript. And then the future of the specialty training and recruitment. What does the job market look like? Is this a hot focus area based off of, is there the need for, are we seeing boomer retirement? Are there any other limitations? This was a 1-year training program. So again, is it that people didn't want to do another year of training after doing 3 to 4 years of internal medicine or med peds and then 3 years of cardiology? Did they want us to do another year of training? So that's something else we looked at. Up here, as far as programs process for first year in the match, we did do a survey to the program directors, of all the program directors. And I also even sent it to our coordinator forum of cardiology to, 10 simple questions on their thoughts on the match. And we had pretty good response from that. I then also had, resources I looked at, regarding, this one was an article written by some trainees about how important it was to move this recruitment to the match instead of the way it was being done nationally. And then the match committee from the specialty area also did a article that was really good and well written. So going back to here real quick. So I'll tell you, the process for this was a quick manuscript. So went through the match, got our results for early December. We did well. We had no problems with it. We matched our 2 positions we were looking at. We were aggressive. We interviewed more applicants than what we had interviewed previously, and we did very well. But there were programs nationally who did not, and some programs that shocked us that did not fill. And what had come out was there were more positions than there were applicants. And it was shocking, the number of programs who weren't aware of that. They had never looked at, and they just assumed, I have applicants all these other years that, I won't have any problem filling. Well, with the match they did this year. So we were looking at, I wanted to kind of dive deeper into that. Plus, I knew there was a lot of resources out there like ARIS reports, the NRMP from previous years. And that, so I sat on it for a few days. And then I finally got the nerve and I called my interventional program director and I threw the idea of why don't we try to do this, but we need to do it quick because programs are preparing for the next year already because we're now into December and budget season starts. So, and the big question was some of these programs, were they looking at doing in person? What were they going to change in order to fill all their spots? And I was thinking my program director was going to be like, "You're crazy, Eva. Yeah, why would we do this? This is a lot to take on." And he was like, "I love it. Let's do it." So, okay. 24 hours later, we had a survey, sent out the survey to the program directors. Took 2 weeks to make sure we had some good responses from that. Next thing I know, it's the week between Christmas and New Year's, and I'm writing a manuscript. That's what I did between Christmas and New Year's, put together the manuscript, had it all, had it to my PD to review. I think by New Year's Day is when he started reviewing it. We tweaked it over a couple of days and I reached out to a journal that I knew had a new focus area on education. So I thought, oh, he'll love this. So I contacted him, make sure that he's like, yeah, I'm intrigued. Please submit it. Okay, great. So I did, submitted it on a Wednesday. I get an email that Sunday. Great material, but we're looking for something more broad and suggested that I refer it to a specialty focused journal. Like, okay. I was a little discouraged. I was like, here I thought I had this amazing thing. And so in my PD, he was a little frustrated. He was like, well, so we sat on it for 24 hours. And then he's like, nope, it's good. We're moving on. We're going to resubmit. We're going to submit it to another journal. And we did. Like within a week, we tweaked it, made it, added a couple tables because the first journal limited us to one table, 2,000 words. It was, and the other one didn't have as many limitations. So we went in and kind of added a little bit more and tweaked a little bit more. So sent it for, uploaded it for review. We received it 3 weeks later. Had some really good input and they asked us to respond to a few questions. One of them they suggested was actually talking to the candidates and doing a survey. So we thought about that a little bit, but again, we wanted to get this published. So we addressed the questions, tweaked it, and we just resubmitted it late last week. So now we're waiting for, we're hoping, fingers crossed, that it gets approved for submission or for publication. If not, then we'll have to, look at potential other options. In this process, when we did resubmit it for to the second journal, we did add another author. And he is very big in education and he gave us some good insights and he gave us really great input as far as the quality of the manuscript and the idea behind it. And he was a great motivator for us because again, when you're like, yay, Ron, I'm submitting it for, this one, and then you're like, what? It was kind of, you had that down moment. But again, he kind of talked us up and we moved on. So that's kind of where I went with this manuscript. And then I do have another one we're working on regarding the data that has been, we've had the 2 posters on for recruitment. So those are my 2 examples of scholarly activity going from QI for the one. And this one, I guess you could call maybe a little QI, not a whole lot. I mean, because we haven't made any changes in our programs, but maybe we've identified some possibilities for other programs is, I guess, a good way to look at that one. So one thing to consider too is depending on your area is, high impact medical journals. Make sure this is sharing again. And I can share these links and everything for you later on for you guys. So if you want to find out what journals have the highest impact factor as far as, the highest reads, the most commentaries about this link gives you all of those medical education research. I wanted to make sure we highlighted that and, other medical education journals. So again, just wanted to provide this access to you that way. And then preparing for the manuscript. Again, something similar to what I shared before, but this one is actually from AAMC, put this one together back in 2010, and it's a little dated, but it does provide some great, again, how to get started, your checklist. It really walks you through the different steps, and even has some different tutorials, preparing an article, ethical issues if you're doing, depending on the type of, if you do surveys or research focus on that. So, but again, another great resource for everybody on that one. Recently, I don't know how many of you are familiar with the Forum for United Leaders in GME. So they're out on LinkedIn, and they do have a website. Are you guys able to let me? I just want to make sure now that you guys are seeing that one too. So great resource that way. In this, honestly, you don't even have to have they're looking for different articles, and they could be short, nothing as big as submitting for a full manuscript. So there's been some great ones out there in the past. I think they've been active now for a couple months. October, I guess, was So these are some recent ones, and some are just blogs. And so, I mean, again, it's just getting a great way to get into the system a little bit, just kind of test the waters. Great opportunity. And this is totally geared for, those of us in medical education who maybe have gotten discouraged and thought you wanted to do the full thing, but maybe you didn't have the time, or you just haven't gotten outcomes that you thought, with your idea. So maybe this is another way for you to go about with that. So that is all that I have for as far as the presentation, but happy to answer any questions or anything. Oh my goodness, it was there. Was there anything specific in the chat that
No, actually, we had connections made.
Good.
We had two people mention that they have projects they wanted to convert into poster presentations, and they made those connections.
Oh, awesome! That is awesome. No, wonderful.
That is amazing. So, can you share with us, if you cannot share your presentation, but can you share us the links that you talked about?
Oh yeah. I can actually. I was going to send out. If you want to do the presentation like in a handouts model, that's fine. And yes, you can have all of that. So all the stuff is out there. Nothing's private. And I can tell you guys. You know what? One thing that I realized. I think I went to it was ACG maybe 2010, 2011. It was a great presentation by this program director who almost had his program closed. And he did a presentation on how to take your program from almost being closed to, continued accreditation. So that kind of was an inspiration of, what, we all have a problem, we all identify these issues. It's, taking it to that next step. And, nothing wrong with like how we did for our recruitment. Share your ideas, and don't be shy. Speak up. So, but it was great to do this for you guys, and let me know if you have any questions. I'm happy to help out, or just even send emails. So that would be great.
We have a few minutes left. Does anybody have any questions?
Speak up even if your voice shakes. Yes, definitely. So, but yeah, don't be shy. That's another thing to share with you. I was the quiet kid in high school. I never raised my hand. I sat there in the corner. Oh my God, to give a public speak was like, presentation was so, not anymore. I think as we get into adults, just go out there. You're gonna do great. So, but
somebody saying no way.
yeah. So, but all right. Well, thank you guys. Thank you.
Again, here we have a group of people who are, let's be honest, there are a lot of us here who are introverts, have never spoken up before, and now we are here.
So.
All right. If anybody doesn't have any questions or comments, we'll close it right now. Thank you everybody for coming in. Eva, thank you so much for a great presentation.
No problem.
I will send out the follow-up email later today or tomorrow with the link to the recording. And again, the links to the evaluation. Evaluation is open until next week. So we have so you have time to respond. And then we don't have a session in March due to scheduling conflicts, but we do have 2 sessions in April, our 2 last sessions of the academic year. And again, I hope everybody's doing great. I'll see who I can see at ACGME. I hope to see everybody. And then remember, we do have our conference coming up. So great opportunity for networking that are coming up in many, many conferences. So have a great rest of your day. Happy Valentine's Day. See you all in April.